Good morning, Westfield. Another straight up top of the hour start to the Westfield News Radio Show. These happen few and far between. Usually we're a couple minutes behind, but when you have important guests, you need to get in all the time you can. So good morning, Westfield. Good morning, Westfield. Again, it is straight up top of the hour. This is the Westfield News Radio Show. It's Thursday, not December, not yet. Thursday, November 15th. Next week's Thanksgiving. I've got my eating pants ready to go. The elastic waistband. The elastic waistband. I got my fuzzy slippers. I can't wait to head over to my sister's house. This is going to be fantastic. And the kids are home from college, so I got designated drivers. This is what it's all about.
For sure.
Finally, the whole sole reason for having kids.
Right.
You got to designate.
Mow the lawn and designated driver.
Your kids mow the lawn?
When properly beaten, yes.
After the iron comes out of the fire and the red hot poke. Yeah, there you go. So that voice that you're hearing is Joe Mitchell. He is a City Advancement Officer for the City of Westfield. Good morning, Joe. Thanks for joining me. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me again.
Joe's one of those handful of guests that I like to have on several times per year, just because there's so much going on in town, and Joe's role within the city is really city advancement, but development, bringing businesses to town, and I always like to get an update from Joe as to what's going on. So good morning again, Joe. Thanks for joining me. There is, you and I have had this conversation on this radio show, off this radio show, time and time again. It's what have you done for me lately?
No kidding.
Exactly. And I know, Joe, that there's always a lot going on in your office, and what in 99% of it the public doesn't see or doesn't know, because there's a lot of privileged private information, legal stuff that you just can't share.
True.
Is that has been the case? Is that still the case today?
It still is, absolutely. So I have there's a number of things going on right now. I'm busier probably in the last couple of weeks than I have been.
The one-arm paper hanger thing.
Exactly, the one-arm paper hanger, the one-legged
sack race guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever bad joke you come up with.
But no, it's true. And part of it's not so much a confidentiality thing. Is a lot of them people are looking, people are exploring, people are trying different things. And as say site selectors or people that want to open a business or expand a business, they'll head down the path for even an expansion, and then on their property, while going through my office and some of the other offices in the city of Westfield, and realize that, that's all those cattails back there. Oh, that's a wetland. I can't build on top of that. No, you can't.
Yeah, northern box turtle has got to lay eggs back there.
Yeah, or something. But there's a whole bunch of different challenges, and so then perhaps they look to buy a new property, or they learn to be more efficient in the property they have.
Right.
So things move forward, and then a certain segment of the economy isn't as supportive of what their efforts are, and then they put that on pause for a period of time.
And we see that a lot. It's funny. Last week on the radio show, Pete and I were talking about development on the north side, kind of where near Pete lives, near the corner of Eggleston and Southampton Road.
Correct.
At one point in time, the dollar store was all set on the southwest corner of Eggleston and Southampton Road.
And I'll just have, so some of your listeners may remember that actually I supported that, and I took the podium to try and say what a good idea that was. Little did I know the room was full of neighbors who didn't share the same idea I had.
Exactly.
And started throwing things.
Who now frequent the establishment, because I go there all the time.
The tar and feathering is starting to wear off.
Yeah.
But to Pete's point, it moves across the street,
right,
and there's no problem. And
because there was no variance.
Well, the opponents are now the regular customers.
Right.
But the point is, there's a lot of things that are going down one path, and for one reason or another, just don't happen. But you might shift gears just ever so slightly, and that's a perfect example.
Yeah, and so to kind of compare and contrast is on the west side of the street where it was originally proposed. That's I want to say that is a business C zone, which you can do that with a special permit of the planning board. And the planning board, after hearing from the neighbors, did not choose to do that. And unfortunately, the woman and her daughter that owned the property there, they're out of luck. They still have the property, and there's no sale going there. And she wanted to, potentially move and pocket a little bit of a sum. But instead, across the street, that is zoned by right for that kind of thing, and the folks that own that property, they subdivided it and sold.
They're
a
the
piece
ones
to,
that-
and
yeah,
and
they're
they
the
so a
benefactors,
business
yeah.
benefited versus one of their residential neighbors. So
Right.
for every door that closes, a window opens somewhere.
But yeah, and just minor nuances can change a whole
Correct.
business plan. But these businesses can't really talk about that. I look at my own business. I'm dabbling in ideas all the time, but I'm not telling everybody.
Right.
Because
They'd lock you up.
Well, play that song later, Pete. I forget what band that is. I think
Napoleon the Fifth.
there you go. But yeah, there's a lot of things always going on.
Correct.
So let's deviate a little bit now. Joe, how long have you been city advancement officer?
So I was acting city advancement officer. I think I want to say March of 2014, and I was
been that long, huh?
confirmed in June. So I was
Wow.
the permanent one around June of 14.
So your first acting career was as city
Yeah,
advancement officer,
exactly.
and now you can
I've
see him
perfected
every
the role,
fall in
potentially,
Samuel
yeah.
Mosley in
Yes,
the
yes,
in the ghost
yes.
tours. So well done.
Thank you.
Understudy.
Yeah.
As city
And that's
advancement.
how tell you what, that's how I started in the ghost tours. Was I was an understudy for then Mayor Dan Knappich, who back then they performed on the Friday and the Saturday night. He could only do the Friday, and I was his understudy for the Saturday.
go.
And little did I know that historic commission
4 or 5 years
chair-
later, yeah.
Cindy Gaylord. No, you're a permanent member of the cast now.
And she's got a way about her. You're really good at what you do, and now you can't back
No,
out.
she's the toughest one to say no to.
I know.
Throughout the city, she's hard to say no to.
And but no, you and I were both in the ghost tours. Good to give back to the city, and always fun.
It's fun. It's a fun time.
Yeah. So 4 years. So you've gotten a lot accomplished in the 4 years. There's some things that didn't cross the finish line that I'm sure that you had hoped for. And in those 4 years, I think the biggest visual for the community that really hasn't gone anywhere is the Elm Street project.
Correct.
That's a tough one. I'm probably speaking out of line, but there were property line questions. There was demolition concerns.
Correct.
There's a lot going on. So give us an update as to November 2018. Where do we stand with?
So, I would say visually, you said visually not much has gone on, but actually visually, you can see the, when I started, the
romantic
Flay-High building.
The
Well,
Flay-High building
was
was
still there.
right. Oh my God! Yeah.
And there was a bowling alley still there.
Yeah.
So even though indirectly the PVTA, the Transit Pavilion, is there now, and people seem to be growing in acceptance on that. So visually, that's 1/3 of the urban renewal plan, and then the Westfield Redevelopment Authority, they acquired the bowling alley and they demolished the bowling alley. We dealt with some environmental issues. But so where we are today as November 2018 is the Westfield Redevelopment Authority is going to release a request for proposal on February 1st is the goal. They're going to do a soft marketing event probably the second week in January. We were going to do it on February 20th actually, but we thought it felt a little rushed and we didn't want to notify.
February 20th or January 20th?
No. So, November 20th is what I said.
November 20th.
So we were going to do one in 2 weeks because we wanted to do it.
Good Lord.
Before we want to do it before Thanksgiving because what this soft marketing event is going to be is to get developers, real estate brokers, bankers, financiers, things like that, other folks who have a stake in it, stakeholders. So a couple of restaurateurs or small business owners that want to be on the first floor. So the project, the way it is shaping up now, we've done a let's call it a study through Mass Development, a grant, and using UTEAL out of Boston. They are urban planners and architects.
Okay.
And so the term we use is, it's penciled out. So using an example of a 4-story mixed-use building with approximately 8,500 square feet on the first floor, which would be for restaurant, retail, and some amenities.
And when you're talking about this type of project, it spans the entire property from the Church Street Commons all the way over to Arnold Street.
Actually, it stops a little bit short of Arnold Street. The
yeah.
the PVTA has their property actually goes all the way up to Elm Street. There's a little swath in there that is approximately like 20 feet wide. So
okay.
it'll be just short of that.
Okay, but it's that whole chunk. So, but are you looking at an RFP as one piece of property or multiple properties?
No, so it's going to be one piece of property. So we did, as the Westfield Redevelopment Authority, their urban renewal plan, the one that was passed in 2012, it had as a concept was a very large 4 to 6 story between 77,000 and 110,000 square feet of restaurant, retail, and office space. Upon looking at it again in 2018, it really didn't make a lot of sense in that we don't believe you could build that and get a return. Some private investor or private developer building that and getting a return on investment. It's not
and that's
real.
all it comes down to. And it's you and I both here. Why doesn't the city build this? Why doesn't the city? The city's not in business.
Yep.
The city is in government.
Yep.
The best you can do is create a parcel of land that's developable and have some vision. I mean, Jay Vinsky from the planning department, the planning board, yourself, the mayor, city councilors all have ideas of what can go there. But the city's not building this. It's, hey, here's what we think.
Why did the city allow them to do that there? Well, it's not a communism. We don't own the whole thing.
Well, that was the PVTA thing.
Right.
It's like,
or whatever. Like, why did they allow another pizza plate? We don't need another pizza plate. Well, it's not for us to say, but some person does believe they wanted to invest their dollars in a pizza place on that corner, and that's how they get built.
Right.
Exactly.
So the RFP is solely the city side of it is to just present, here's the chunk of land, here's the parameters of the parcel, it's X amount of ground square feet, here's what the city's zoning allows, X number of floors. Based on this study from this group out of Boston, here's what could happen in a downtown, here's some ideas. You bankers, you developers, take all that and do with it as you please.
Correct.
And then but pay the city for the property.
Right. And so just to be clear, it's really not the city, it's the Westfield Redevelopment Authority, which is kind of a smaller subset. It is it is a quasi. They're allowed under the state.
And a developer may come back and go, that's all. That's beautiful. I love what you guys have done, but that's not what we want to do.
Right. And so the Westfield Redevelopment Authority, which is 5 members, 4 are appointed by the mayor, 1 appointed by the governor of Massachusetts. And they will look at, hopefully, and the reason we're doing the marketing campaign ahead of time is we want to make sure that these developers know, hey, come February 1st, this thing's going to hit the streets, and here's some slides that show us what we think would work there. What do you think? And then they can, partner up with people and get the creative juices flowing and things like that, and they will respond to the RFP.
Right.
Hopefully, there'll be multiple responses, and then the Westfield Redevelopment Authority, the 5 of them, will vote, say, someone may have, nice idea, but we want to do this and that and that. And then someone else may say, we want to do something different, and they will choose which one that they want to move forward with, which that they think fits best with the fabric of our city and what it is, and it has to kind of be in line with the urban renewal plan, which talks about mixed use
and not only that, but trends in downtown too. Because I mean, in the last 5 years, the trends of downtown have changed dramatically.
Correct.
I shared this a couple of weeks ago with some friends. I read an article in I forget which publication it was, but it talked about the retail environment in New York City and how these streets, like in Soho and some of these other upscale neighborhoods, which used to have all these boutique stores, very, high-end stores and whatever, the retail's disappearing, and New York City has its highest vacant retail rate that it's had in decades. And it was interesting that some of the things that are filling those retail openings, pizza places, hairdressers, massage parlors, tattoo parlors, nail salons, and
things you can't do online.
Bingo. And that's exactly what the article said. It's, for right or wrong, the internet has changed retail.
Correct.
The stores are going to struggle. They will always struggle. But what makes a downtown? What will draw people to downtown? And it's the things you can't do online. All the things I just mentioned. Live entertainment.
Correct.
So what would make a downtown today is a lot different than what it was 5 years ago.
And correct. And to carry that point a little bit further is one that the 5 members of WRA are all very sharp and bring something different. But the chair is Kathy Witalics, who's in real estate.
Real estate.
And
she knows.
Keeps reminding us, is like, even still, it's not what can we build for today. She's like, this building will be there 50 years from now. We have to make sure we have a great, we meaning them, not myself, I'm the executive director. They're the ones that get to vote and choose. They need to make a decision that can withstand time. They have to be a little more forward thinking. And so it's great that she has that insight and keeps reminding the group of that, because that's what they're going to do.
A year or two ago, I had Dr. Bob Brown on my show, and we were talking about the
Historic, yeah.
the historic makeup
Yeah.
of downtown. And one thing he shared, which it took me a minute to get my head around, was he said Elm Street was never originally the retail center. He goes historically, and he goes, I'm talking historically,
Yeah.
like 1900, late
Yeah,
18s.
1890s,
It
yeah.
was a residential corridor. He said School Street, believe it or not, was your
Right.
School Street, Church Street, which when Church met Elm and Arnold, those were your business sections.
Right.
That's where all the shops were, your tailors, your cobblers, your, you know, horseshoe guy, whatever. So maybe that's what Elm Street becomes again, is a residential corridor versus, because you have said it, and some of the others, that affordable downtown living for our kids' generation.
Right.
That
And that's what
generation
they
wants
want.
to walk
So-
places.
And what UTL has come up with, and what the WRA has embraced, and it's descriptive, not proscriptive. So
What's that mean?
It means it's something that this could work, and it's something UTL has come up with, but it's not saying you have to do this. So trying to do the homework for some developer, if you just give them the land and say, hey, do something nice, and like, well,
We want to
what's
make
going to work?
plant
What's going to,
trees.
yeah, a water park? Is that what we want to do? So wouldn't that be cool? Oh. However, unfortunately, the urban renewal plan does not have that. So-
One of the things I've always said is a zip line.
yeah.
Right from downtown up to Half Mile Falls Park and back and
Actually,
forth.
the
And
Westfield University, Westfield State University, they
It's all
they had
downhill
some
from up there.
Right, exactly.
Oh, yeah.
They talked about going down the river with a zip line. But so what they've come up with, UTL has, is that 8,500 square feet on the first floor, a four-story building with 42 units of market rate housing. So, and it's studios, 1 and 2 bedroom apartments, and it pencils out, meaning that construction costs are what they are, and the market rate for rental on a studio or 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, it just about pays the bills. So it's not 100% whole, but if you combine that with, if you put a little bit of workforce housing, you dip it a little bit into the affordable housing tax credits, and then also our downtown is part of the new opportunity zone.
Right.
So there's capital gains investment credits there. So if you take those two things, then maybe a little help from the state and a little help from the city and a little help. Now the numbers actually.
It
So if you're
makes
going to do
sense.
residential,
Yeah.
that makes sense. However, the developer may say, that's great, but I really think there is a market for a little bit of office space in there too. So they may massage it or change it or something
Right.
like that. So that's what we've come up with.
Gotcha. We're going to have to head to a break because it's 18 after the hour. But before we do, can we put a bowling alley downtown? We're going to be right back after this. We're going to thank some of our underwriters and play some music. We'll be right back.
With a zip line. But so what they've come up with, UTL has, is that 8,500 square feet on the first floor, a four-story building with 42 units of market rate housing. So, and it's studios, 1 and 2 bedroom apartments, and it pencils out, meaning that construction costs are what they are, and the market rate for rental on a studio or 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, it just about pays the bills. So it's not 100% whole, but if you combine that with, if you put a little bit of workforce housing, you dip it a little bit into the affordable housing tax credits, and then also our downtown is part of the new opportunity zone.
Right.
So there's capital gains investment credits there. So if you take those two things, then maybe a little help from the state and a little help from the city and a little help. Now the numbers actually.
It
So if you're
makes
going to do
sense.
residential,
Yeah.
that makes sense. However, the developer may say, that's great, but I really think there is a market for a little bit of office space in there too. So they may massage it or change it or something
Right.
like that. So that's what we've come up with.
Gotcha. We're going to have to head to a break because it's 18 after the hour. But before we do, can we put a bowling alley downtown? We're going to be right back after this. We're going to thank some of our underwriters and play some music. We'll be right back.
Support for community radio on WSKB is provided by Betts Plumbing and Heating Supply Company, an independent, family-owned wholesaler serving Westfield for over 50 years, specializing in plumbing, heating, and industrial piping supplies. On the web at bettsplumbing.com or at 14 Coleman Avenue in Westfield.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by Westfield Bank. For more than 160 years, Westfield Bank has been an important community presence and commercial leader in the Pioneer Valley. With convenient full banking services in Westfield, West Springfield, East Longmeadow, Agawam, Feeding Hills, Springfield, Southwick, as well as Enfield and Granby, Connecticut, visit us on the web at westfieldbank.org.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Dunkin' Donuts shops of Westfield and the Sardinia family. It's nice to know that even as the world changes, Dunkin' Coffee remains the same at 7 convenient locations throughout Westfield.
Wednesday mornings start off right from 6 to 8 a.m. with Tina Gorman and Wake Up Wednesday.
Community Radio
89.5 WSKB. Live from the campus of Westfield State University, this is 89.5 FM, WSKB, Westfield.
live around the world.
You're listening to the Westfield News Radio Show on WSKB 89.5 FM Westfield.
Here's your host, the owner of the Westfield News Group, Patrick Barry.
Good morning again, everybody. 23 after the hour. Glad you could join us this morning. Joe Mitchell, City Advancement Officer for Westfield, is my guest. Good morning again, Joe.
Good morning.
Thanks for coming in. I appreciate it. So we're talking, Joe, as I mentioned earlier on, is one of my guests that I like to have on periodically. And this is your last appearance on the Westfield News Radio Show, Joe. December 20th, I'm done. I've handed in my resignation.
I thought you agreed to do a monthly show after that.
Weekly. I'm done with the weekly shows.
Right, yeah.
And the
show,
monthly show, we still gotta talk about this, Pete.
Okay.
Terms.
We will tape the show
Absolutely.
in the evenings.
Yes.
We will. It's not gonna be this same show. It's gonna be a little different.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna change it up. We're gonna have live entertainment on the show.
He's doing a variety show?
It's gonna be.
All of a sudden, you're Rowan and Martin?
No, I'm thinking. I was gonna say it to Joe later, but
right.
Joe's gonna be my Ed McMahon to my Johnny Carson.
Nice.
So, do you have the good belly laugh, Joe? Yes, Patrick. No, that's Santa Claus.
That's your Santa
I have
Claus.
caller ID, so when you're calling me,
So yeah, Joe, this is your last appearance on the Westfield News Radio Show. So, but you're certainly in the last 4 years since you've been in your role, and I've been doing the show. I'd like to have you on because there's so much going on in Westfield that you know about, as we stated in the first segment. But there's a lot you can't talk about, and I get it.
Sure.
Confidentiality with some of the people that are looking at Westfield. We talked about the RFP going out for the Elm Street property, which is on the west side of Elm Street, formerly known as the Landaus, which is for the older folks listening, which is pretty
even
much
more than
everybody.
I hear people talk about Newberries,
right?
so
Which is then the
Landau's
Newberries.
Yeah.
You weren't in Westfield when Newberries
No,
burnt?
I showed up at in 1996.
Oh, okay. So about 10 years after.
Yeah.
But so we're talking about that piece of property there. But in that, and I think you know this, Joe, that development of that chunk of land is really, I think, for residents, the visual of, is Westfield succeeding? I hate to use that word, but it's been vacant for so
30 years,
long,
yeah.
and it's painful. But I think the wheels of progress in government move slow.
To
but
your
I
point,
think
yeah, but also the market as well. So what's very encouraging, so with the consultants we have, Util, and talking about 42 units of market rate residents, people do, or two types of people. Millennials do want to live in a downtown. They don't want the white picket fence and the half an acre and the 2,500 square foot house and the lawn to mow and stuff like that. They want to be in the downtown, but also people in their autumn years don't want that large
Autumn
house.
years.
Yeah, you like that one? I was gonna say, or people that
Golden
are old,
years.
like or the
old,
winter.
old people like us.
But so they're looking at this as well. So we have a housing stock in Westfield that is what it is. I mean, there's some older stock and there's some newer stock of housing, but and again, to Kathy Witalik's our chairwoman, there is no sizzle, there is no sexy.
Right.
But other communities do have this, and case in point is Chicopee right now. They have a project going on with 110 units of market rate
in an old
studio in a
factory.
refurbishing a
old
mill, right?
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. Yep.
And then on the books is another. It's something crazy. It's like 220, units
Yep.
of market rate housing, and their community and their economy is very similar to ours, and so people are putting dollars down and executing these things. So, maybe a year ago I was thinking, yeah, we could do this. I hear this is how this works, but it's actually in our backyard. People are doing this, and I think we'll have the same success here in Westfield. So 42 units. I think our community can absorb 42 units pretty easily.
And it's the interesting thing, you've probably heard it too, is I hear complaints about the high cost of rent in Westfield, just for people trying to rent. Maybe it's single parents or young couples or single, people just, the 24-year-olds just trying to get their leg up, But I look at it, and, you and I have a lot of these mutual real estate friends. The reason for higher real estate costs or rental costs is because it's a good place.
Right.
Low crime, good schools.
Exactly.
Westfield's got a lot to it. It's got its own university, its own hospital. There's a lot to Westfield,
Correct.
which means you're going to pay a little higher than you would in Agawam or Holyoke or West Springfield,
Right.
because you have those. So 42 extra units, you're only talking 100 people. 150 people.
Yeah, exactly,
It's not a huge strain on schools, fire.
And ask any of these same real estate people you're talking about. Right now, there is nothing in the marketplace. As soon as where we are right now, it's very hot. It's a seller's market in that there aren't enough houses out there for people to buy. And when someone does say, I think I'll sell my house, and they put that sign out in the front lawn, it's not there for very long, and they get their asking price and then some. So
Exactly.
by adding more to the market, more people can get into. And we're thinking, at least initially, it might be rental market, but what if the developer says, no, it's going to be a mix of condo
Right.
and so
Yeah.
here's a chance that you can build equity, where people talk about, I keep renting and renting, but I can't buy.
I got nothing to show
because-
for it at the end of the day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And because they can't maybe swing a down payment on a large home, but maybe you could swing a down payment on a condo, and you're building equity. You're paying you're paying yourself rather than paying the
Right.
landlord your rent.
Let me ask you a question. As part of your role, and I look at my mother's neighborhood, Birch Bluffs. There was a wooded lot there for literally forever, and all of a sudden, about a year or two ago, they started clearing it, and there's now starting to get developed as housing. Does that fall under your purview, housing developments, or are you
Not
just
so
industrial?
much. No, just
or
mostly
business.
business and
Okay.
industrial. Correct.
I wasn't
have
sure.
That is part of. So I also, I dabble in, because the spheres of things I'm involved in. I do dabble in, workforce development and employment, and I do dabble in housing, because they are key. If you're going to bring businesses in, people
Yeah.
have to have a place to live,
Exactly.
and if they come in and they need 20 employees, 40 employees, you have to make sure that they have the right skill set that's matched up.
That's a good segue into the company that took over the property downtown. That it was Piccolo's, it was Patty's, it was Stella's. Pick a name.
So Myers Information Systems out of Northampton.
And so
Correct.
they took over that building. They bought that building.
Correct.
They're refurbishing the whole building.
Correct.
But again, they're looking at 30, 40 employees, right?
Correct.
So, yeah, these young people or these people who work there, they're going to need a place to live.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly right. I mean, they're from the area, so they're not all new, but some will
Want to
relocate here. But also the secondaries and tertiaries out of that they're going to be having lunch downtown, where they bring it to their desk, or they go to Clemenza's, or they go to Circuit Coffee, or
Eat out or
exactly,
bring it back. Yeah.
Exactly. So so they'll have a positive impact, on our downtown.
So, sliding out of the downtown corridor and heading east, why hasn't the city filled the Bonton spot yet?
Yeah.
What is your problem?
Why, yeah, exactly. Why doesn't the city put in, a water park at the Bonton? Well,
You're
the city
stuck
doesn't
on these
own-
water park
Yeah.
things, aren't
Well,
you?
I read about it frequently. No, so
Dave and Buster's. Dave and Buster's.
That'd be kind of cool too. So a lot of these chains, I mean, they need to see a certain car count. So people always ask about things like that. And,
Right. It
and I
took
have-
forever for an Applebee's.
Right.
Took even longer for a 99 to come to
Right.
town. But you're absolutely right. These larger corporations, it all comes down to population and car count.
Yeah, they have, and so as opposed to say a regional restaurateur, say like Mr. Bonavita at
Right.
the Tavern, or
Nabil over at the
Opa or something like
Showstopper,
that,
yeah.
where
Yep.
they're going to explore and they're going to expand and they're going to run this business. When you get to something that's the size of a 99 or a Dave and Buster's, or I actually reached out to the folks at RERA, if you know who they are. They,
oh my God, you're bringing them to town?
So, yeah,
Joe, I will worship the ground you walk on.
Yeah. So, but you know what they do? They like to refurbish banks. And since we have a bank at 10,
wow.
East Main, if you're listening, RERA, 10 East.
10 Main,
Street.
right?
Yeah, 10 Main. Yeah, it's 10 Main Street in Westfield. Yeah, so I've
well, actually, there's one on East Main Street too.
VP
we got multiple empty banks in town.
I mean, but that
Take
bank
your pick.
But they also, so when you get to like a large corporate company like that, they don't have time to look at every single community and what do they offer? What's their nuance?
Right.
It boils down to what's the and this is stats they have people provide them.
Yeah, exactly.
What is the population? What is the median income? How many cars go past this spot every single day? And they use that to take the 400 cities and towns are asking them come to our town and whittle it down to 40, something manageable.
There are so many. There's so much demographic data out there on how a community acts and how they spend their extra money, things that so they're looking at it. They don't come to town and say, oh well, Joe, we like you, we're going to invest, but they look at it from a strategic standpoint.
Correct.
But just we laughed a little bit about the Bonton space and that's the unfortunate openings over there on East Main Street. Do they talk to the city at all?
This one in particular they do. So it's called DEI out of Connecticut. They're property owners. They've owned that property for a couple of decades, and they did actually. I approached them when I knew Bonton was closing, and actually I've dealt with the landlord before on an unrelated issue when they were doing some paving. What you may or may not know is that's in the floodplain. So when they make adjustments to their property, it has to go through certain offices in the city. So I knew who they were, and I reached out to them and said, hey, is there anything I can do to help? And so they communicated with myself and the mayor. We've had a couple of sit-downs, and what do they think the city would like to see there? What could we support? And as it turns out, I do know a certain retailer, and they were looking for they've approached this retailer as well. And they said, no, they won't look at us because of a certain car count. Well, I knew someone a little higher up in the food chain, and I said, hey, you should look at this property. I know the car count's maybe a little off, but no. So actually, after talking to that vice president of real estate in this retail chain,
right?
The phone still didn't ring. So
exactly.
But you try.
Yeah, and that's got to be a very difficult industry to be in. Owning strip malls,
right.
Or strip shopping centers, whatever it might be.
You don't want them to be empty, not for too long.
Not at all.
So they're looking. So we,
and
along with them,
and
they've got to close. So yeah, it's there's two big ones. There's a 50,000 square foot, the Bonton itself.
The two Bontons.
And then the 25,000 is the men's, men's
right,
Bonton.
Yeah.
So the big one is their main store, and then they do have a couple leads, and we're heading in the right direction. One is retail, but then also we talked about it off air is experiential. So things that you can't, click online and do. So, things that, like theaters and like bowling.
Well, look what
like
they did in the Hadley Mall.
Lasers,
the go-karts, indoor go-karting.
Right,
I mean,
exactly.
who would have thought? But it's working somewhere.
Exactly.
So you're absolutely experiential entertainment, for lack of a better description.
Yes.
But it's interesting. There's a lot of malls are having problems. Sears is going away from the Holyoke malls.
Yeah, exactly.
The Holyoke Mall is starting to have problems. But there has been a movement.
The Eastville Mall is a vast wasteland.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But there's
really
been a
is.
movement of malls who are considering adding on, so building up and then making apartments or condos above, filling the retail space with doctors, lawyers, dentists, cleaners. So you have like a city,
correct,
and you got a ton of parking.
Right.
So
yeah, true. Yeah,
for the elderly,
built in.
think about that. Elderly housing above Holyoke Mall. I'm just but it'd be a hell of an idea because then you got climate controlled walking
indoors. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, it's perfect. And the point of this is these developers have to completely rethink. Because what worked for 50 years isn't working anymore.
Yeah, and similarly, you talked about some malls have it, and this is something that DEI is looking at as well, is services, whether it be doctor or dentist or things like that. And you'll see I think there's a dentist, and there's plenty of eye doctors in malls today, which when they first started blossoming in the late 80s or the early 80s, that would have been unheard of. Like,
Right.
you go to the doctor. When you go to the doctor, we're just shopping here. So
It's interesting. At the Westfield News, we had a meeting with Ken's Eyewear earlier this year, and they forever were on Court Street. They're now over on East Main Street.
Right.
And it was in talking to one of the Kens. They said they'd been trying to get into East Main Street forever, and get off of Court Street, and the sun and moon and star, everything aligned perfectly, where they were able to. Because again, he looks at it as he goes, our Court Street facility was nice, but now we've got more parking. Our customers have plenty of parking, easy come go. And
some foot traffic. You may have some walk-ins, like someone breaks their sunglasses. Oh, I could use some sunglasses.
Exactly.
Wait a minute.
When
was the last time you had an eye exam? Oh, 4 or 5 years. Oh, your insurance allows them one. So,
How many fingers am I holding up?
Exactly, right.
No,
right.
That's 4 fingers and a thumb. You're wrong. Sit down in the chair. No, Pete? No button on that one? Huh? Wow, I thought for sure that was going to get the button.
Nope.
But yeah, so, East Main Street, the property manager, it's their thing to do with. They might rely on you for some advice.
But they'll take whatever help they can get. So they have salespeople that are pounding the pavement, and they own a number of properties. So folks who are doing successful in one of their other ones, they would say, "Hey, do you want to come to our Westfield one
We'll
as
give
well?"
you a deal to expand here.
Exactly.
It's all sales.
So there's that going on. So we, getting city help and what we can offer, we're just one component of the many different approaches they're using to try and fill the space.
It's coming up on 38 after the hour. We're going to take our next break and thank some of our underwriters, play some music. We'll be right back.
These eyes cry every night for you. These arms long to hold you again. The curtains on me, yeah, and I will never be free. No, my baby, no, no. Eyes watched you bring my world to an end. This heart could not accept and pretend. The curtains on me, yeah, and I will never be free. No, no, no. You spoke it, hey. These eyes are crying. These eyes have seen a lot of love, but they're never gonna see another one like I had with you. These eyes are crying. These eyes have seen a lot of love, but they're never gonna see another one like I had with you. Cry every night for you. These arms long to hold you again. These eyes are crying. These eyes have seen a lot of love, but they're never gonna see another one like I had with you. A lot of love, but they're never gonna see another one like I had with you. These eyes are crying. These eyes have seen a lot of love, but they're never gonna see another one like I had with you.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by Bay State Dental. Comprehensive dentistry at 14 convenient locations in Springfield, Chicopee, Longmeadow, West Springfield, Belchertown, East Longmeadow, Ludlow, Northampton, Greenfield, and Wilbraham, as well as 29 Broad Street in Westfield. Bay State Dental makes it a priority to help you achieve and maintain the healthy smile you deserve. On the web at baystatedental.com. Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Barnes & Noble College Bookstore in the Ely Campus Center, offering Westfield State t-shirts, sweatshirts, and gift merchandise, all of your academic needs, and offering textbook materials in new, used, ebook, and rental formats. Available at the bookstore on campus or online at westfieldstate.bncollege.com. Support for community radio on WSKB is provided by Betts Plumbing and Heating Supply Company, an independent, family-owned wholesaler serving Westfield for over 50 years, specializing in plumbing, heating, and industrial piping supplies. On the web at bettsplumbing.com or at 14 Coleman Avenue in Westfield.
It's Tuesday morning from 6 till 8. Wow, it's Tuesday with Bob Plass.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB. Live from the campus of Westfield State University, this is 89.5 FM WSKB Westfield.
Live around the world.
You're listening to the Westfield News Radio Show on WSKB 89.5 FM Westfield.
Here's your host, the owner of the Westfield News Group, Patrick Barry.
Good morning again, everybody. Welcome back. Thanks for joining. 43 minutes after the top of the hour, so what's that? 17 minutes before the next hour begins, I believe. That's how math works.
That's apparently a newer concept. When I tell my
Math?
kids that's the new math is killing me. But when they say, what time should we be there? I say, quarter of, and they'll be like,
Looking at you.
So 2:45. Saying quarter of is an unusual concept. I think the round dial and knowing that's a quarter.
Exactly.
But they're not round out. We're from the analog world,
Yep.
and
I am
now
so
it's digital.
analog, it's scary. But anyway.
Yeah.
But again, hang up the phone. There is no hanging up. You just press a
good
button.
point.
Yeah.
And loss would be, if somebody ever drops a dime on somebody, kids.
They don't know.
They won't know what that means.
Yeah, I'm even having a hard time with that one. That lovely, soothing voice you just heard is Joe Mitchell, City Advancement Officer for the City of Westfield. Thanks, Joe, for joining me. I appreciate it.
Happy to be here.
We covered Elm Street. We covered what you're not doing on East Main Street. I joke. So we've covered Elm Street. We've covered some of the vacancies on East Main Street and what you're doing working with the developer or the landlord over there. Let's talk other business in town. We have there's projects going on Turnpike Industrial. There is a new helicopter company in town.
True.
There's potential on the north side of town. Potential on the north side of town is always tricky because that's where the zoning allows a lot of things to be done. That's where our water supply is. That's where the vacant land is. That's where a lot of people live. There's a lot of. I'm trying to think. It's delicate if you want to put. If people want to go to. If development wants to go to the north side of town, it's a very delicate situation because people live there for a reason. They live there, because it's open. It's
right.
And that's why they chose to live there. The flip side is, it's zoned that way. It's been zoned that way for decades. The airport's been there for almost 100 years. Pick whatever the reason is.
Right.
So your challenge is, the city council's challenge is to allow business and get business, attract business to Westfield. The north side is really where it has to go. You can't put a Home Depot in Birch Bluffs. It's just not going to work. The zoning doesn't work like that. There's not a lot of there's no zoning on the south side of town. And when I say I separate the city north side, south side, I use the Westfield River as sort of that demarcation point. This south side of town isn't really zoned for that, whereas the north side is. So it's a very delicate balance to get that done. I don't envy you in that. I don't envy the city councilors. I don't envy the planning board. But to alleviate our individual property taxes, individuals as homeowners, we have to bring business to town.
So two things. What you said, everything you said is absolutely true, and I've
Well, thank
like
you.
two. Yeah,
I'm done here.
That's
Thank you
fine.
very much.
Thank you. Tip your waitresses. Try the veal. Two things. One is you're right. There are sensitivity and there's a balance there, and that's part of the reason why I'm here and employed by the city is to have quote unquote smart growth, as opposed to, and that goes in line with appropriate zoning and our planning department is to not have stuff willy-nilly everywhere and to have a balance. There is a Barnes Aquifer Overlay District which has restrictions, and actually up on the north side there are a certain number of endangered species or threatened species, which is part of the Natural Heritage Endangered Species Program. So we do have a lot of land, but a lot of it is undevelopable. As a result of
Because
these two
protected-
things.
yeah,
Exactly right. So so smart growth is part of, that's constantly a mantra that I march to. And then you also kind of touched on, as far as we, the city of Westfield, I think of a lot of what I do is a three-legged stool, or how the citizens act is a three-legged stool. One, they want their services, and I get that. You want the roads to be fixed and paved, and you want the fire department to have the appropriate equipment, and we want good schools so our kids will have a great education, be competitive in the world out there. So, the services, everybody wants those. Taxes, to finance these services, it costs something. So generating taxes, and nobody wants to pay them, and come every June we start doing the budget, everyone talks about people getting, hammered and people on fixed incomes that can't afford that. So the idea is, try not to raise people's taxes, but maybe have others pay those taxes, which would be the businesses. Right. And plus keeping your economy heading in the right direction. If you're not heading the positive direction, others are, and you're actually in a negative direction. You don't want to be a community that's on a downward slide. And then the third piece is, that these businesses have to get in here is, a lot of people say, not in my backyard, not here. But there are places where these things are zoned for, and everyone is well aware of it. And then going through site plan approval or special permits through the planning board or city council, if that be the case, then, to have as many mitigating steps. Everyone's resistant to change anyway. It's human nature. But if it's done smartly, and setbacks that are in the zoning ordinance are
and buffers
exactly setbacks and buffers and right turn only and things like that, and making sure there's enough handicap parking and the flow on someone's property as far as cars go, where it's because you wouldn't want parking well off in a distance
free for all
exactly where people are going to get hit by cars and stuff. So we have a very thoughtful planning board, and we have a very thoughtful process. So there's the balance, is everybody wants their services, nobody wants to pay taxes, and nobody wants it in their backyard. Well, guess what? Everything is a give and take, so it's got to be a balance.
I look at it too is, people look at Long Meadow, okay? I mean, the average property tax in Westfield, I think, is about $4,000. And I'm talking property, homeowner. The average homeowner is about $4,000 a year. Long Meadow's about $12,000. Right. And they don't have a lot of industry over there. No. So what do you want?
Exactly.
And it's to your point is there's that balance. I want these things, but I don't want to pay for them.
Right.
So we have to be able to lure business. I was a little disappointed the Old Dominion thing didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking off air. I had a couple of people going back and forth in the Pulse line about the Old Dominion thing, and and you were far more involved with that project than I was. And I want to say it was, the way it worked out was 26 trucks a day. So it was a little more than 1 per hour.
Right.
Home Depot does 100 trucks a day.
Yeah, I don't even know it's a pretty big number. I don't know what it is.
It's enormous, yeah. So, and I look at the Old Dominion. Do we want trucks in town? That's a tough balance. But I look at it from, okay, what are they going to pay in taxes?
Right.
And the property they were looking at had very little expandable land.
Right.
So even if they went from 26 to 40 trucks a day, or even still, it's never going to equate what the Home Depot project is.
And some folks would argue that Old Dominion trucks are already on our roads, which they are. I mean, look, they're pretty visible. The logo there.
Right.
It's just, they're using our roads, but we're not collecting any taxes, and they're not living in Westfield. Those.
Right.
They're not employed by,
Right. So they're using our roads and not paying us anything for it,
Yeah.
So I was a little disappointed, even though I don't think the Old Dominion total annual tax revenue was tremendous. Roughly speaking, I think it was like $400,000 a year.
It was less than that. I think it was like around the 100 mark.
Okay, but still.
But not talking about road tax and other things, but yeah, just their property.
So you're talking at even if it's $100,000 a year, and the average home is $4,000 a year. Yeah. Look, just do the math. How many homes you need to build?
Right, 25 homes, with no kids going in your schools and no additional police or fire or anything like that.
Exactly.
So no, it's a good way to go.
That's the thing where business is beneficial to a community because they don't use really a lot of the services that a home does.
Yep. And we have a split tax rate, and a lot of them, people will voice the Chamber of Commerce, like they require less services. A business doesn't have people in the schools, and the fire department just inspects their sprinklers once a year and things like that. Yet we charge them more to help, subsidize our residential living. So there's an argument to be made there. So they pay them. They want to come in and they want to pay them,
and businesses look at Westfield because of a lot of the great things we have to offer. So shifting gears a little bit, are there, not really shifting gears, but are there businesses out there that you know of? Are you working on anything of any, that's going to bring jobs to town, that's going to help the tax bases? I mean, I know a lot of this stuff is confidential, but is there anything you can share? Do I need to pin you down?
So
and
this
give
is
you a noogie?
well, I'm going to go right to the Turnpike Industrial Park.
Okay.
Which is, since I think there's only 8 minutes left in our hour anyway, so I'm going to cut to the chase here. So by the time this airs,
Amazon HQ2 is coming to Westfield.
There you go. Oh, your cat's out of the bag now. No, but so the city being very proactive. We have some land that is zoned industrial, and it doesn't have any endangered species.
And that parcel is the last, if I understand this correctly, the last large developable parcel, correct?
Yeah, that's contiguous, correct.
Yeah, okay.
And it's so it's now 74 acres, and we're doing the state pre-permitting on the industrial park. And if and people made comments about it, it's going through the process, and people wrote comments over the summer. The draft environmental impact report hit the streets by the time this airs last week. So folks can see that now. If you wrote a comment, if you mailed it, you got a postcard. If you emailed your comment, you got an email that has the link to the whole report. Excuse me. And there'll be an additional 30 days of comments. So, look through the report, see how we answered questions about water quality and flood zone and runoff and greenhouse gases and traffic and
that parcel is not on any aquifer.
It is not on the. So actually, to be fair to the folks that are the aquifer, it's not on the Barnes aquifer. There is a low or medium yield aquifer that runs underneath it, but that is also shared by the Twist Street landfill, which is a 40-acre unlined landfill. That's
laugh under my breath.
So you can't. I mean, and what this study would do, if you read it, and it's probably like an inch and a half thick, and it's several hundred pages. But we did look at it, and we did explore it, and you would never use that for a municipal water source. In that there are industrial properties above it. It's shared with a landfill, and there are already. There are too many septic systems on top of it already. There's a mobile home park and stuff like that that's right on top of that.
Yeah,
so it's not. I mean, I get. I want to protect the water too. I get it. So,
right.
But just that is not like we shouldn't not develop that because of that reason. The water that's under there never touches the Barnes aquifer. There's like a little mountain underground that separates these water.
And the flip side too is development in 2018 is a lot more environmentally friendly than development in 2015,
Absolutely.
than in 2000, than in 1970. So developers and environmentalists and governments are far more in tune with protecting environments today.
And there's
than
no
they
shortage
ever
of
were.
agencies that they have to report to. So whether it be local or state or federal, whether it be water, land, hazardous materials, or air.
Right.
And so the one point I want to make is, so it's out there, read it, and then there's still another 30 days to comment. So it was.
So is there anybody interested in that parcel? Do you have anybody?
Yeah. So I've got two people already that want it. Yeah, exactly. I mean.
In the whole parcel or something?
No. They want a piece of it. So they want.
You want a piece of me?
Yeah, not so. And we're trying not to. So we're trying to be in the smart development. Looking for manufacturing, looking for light industrial, looking for flex tech. I mean, I won't lie. There is a very big market for warehousing, but these two entities have already expressed an interest. They're manufacturers. They're not They're not warehousing.
Well, manufacturing means jobs.
Exactly right.
Right.
This is true.
You know,
Yep.
it's
And warehousing does too, but there's more.
Oh, more jobs.
More jobs in manufacturing
Yeah.
than there are in
Absolutely.
in logistics.
So because we're running late on time in your hour, we can go over if we need to. But any projects out there, any businesses,
So
anything.
as one of the comments that folks made during the Turnpike Industrial was like, why are we developing virgin land when there's so many empty industrial buildings in the city? Well, there aren't that many. There's a couple, and they're hotly marketed. And I can't. We're right at the finish line. The ink isn't dry yet, but there is a manufacturer looking to come to Westfield who is looking to invest $45 million in
Wow.
existing property, which to a point of scale, the last big single thing we had in the city was $23 million when Gulfstream did their expansion. So
Right.
this is twice that size, and it's manufacturing, and they're going to employ
It's jobs.
80 people. And
Isn't-
unlike, and good jobs, but not so super skilled as in the precision manufacturing world where, years of school is required. No,
Right.
this is, good manufacturing jobs that doesn't require a special skill.
Now, is this
They're gonna use rail.
Is this a 24/7 operation, or is it 3 shifts?
Yes, it
one
would be.
shift?
Yep, it would be.
Good.
24/7 operation.
Wow. So, and if that comes to fruition, is there a
In the next couple before Christmas, the world's
Really?
gonna know about this. Yeah, there's a couple city councils.
either we're going to know about it, or we'll never hear about it again.
No, you'll hear there's certain people read into that. They're in the secret squirrel group here, and they've been read in. So
Wow.
if it doesn't happen, it'll get out that we got this close, and something I had been working on for 2 years. These things just take.
Oh, absolutely.
So a national company, a multi-billion-dollar company, doesn't just drop $45 million on a whim. So
Right.
their due diligence period has
Takes a
been,
long time.
It is.
These are huge. Again, think about it. What'd you say, $40 million?
45.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And think about it. If you're investing $45 million, you're going to do a lot of due diligence.
When you think about $1 million here, $1 million there, next thing you know, you're talking some real money.
Absolutely,
Yes.
absolutely. Is there any way they can, slip me a couple of bucks in that?
If
it's
I
not
were
46
unscrupulous,
million.
they'd slip it to me.
Yeah,
But
right.
no,
Well,
but
no,
I
not
am-
you,
I am
me.
above
It's about
board.
me,
Yeah,
Joe.
I know.
Joe Mitchell, thank you so very much for
It is
joining
my
me.
pleasure.
Our
I
hour
always,
is up. I always love having you on because I learned so much more about my city than I knew at the start of the hour. So, thank you. Thanks for joining me on the show for the last few years in
My
your
pleasure.
position. It's been fun. Our hour is up here. We're creeping up on the top of the hour. Pete's going to take us away with some music. Thanks some of our underwriters, and we'll figure out what's going on next hour.
Have a nice day.
Hamlet. Hamlet. Have a little mercy, if you please. Everybody, get on the floor, do your thing. Everybody, get on the floor, do your thing. Whatever it is, get on the floor, do your thing. Whatever it is, get on the floor, do your thing. Whatever it is, I'ma do mine, y'all. So do mine. I'ma do mine this evening, baby. Do mine. Ooh. Ah. Lord.